Check this out. Porsche stuff everywhere. We are in the house of a connoisseur, a Porsche fanatic. We're in the home of the mighty Alain de Rosier, and we're here this week to ask him about Mr. Deyan, who is our guest on Crown Unfiltered today. Alain and him work together at Renault, and Alain knows a lot more about him than I do. I know that Deyan designed the A110, the Alpine A110, but Alain can actually give you a deeper insight into all of this. So his wife has warned me that he's been boozing all day, so he's a little bit volatile, and we need to take this into consideration. He might not be that, should we say, welcoming, but come on, let's go. Excuse me, Mr. de Rosier.
Who are you?
Hello, I'm Sam Offsowitz from Crown Unfiltered.
And what the fuck are you doing here?
I just came to ask you about my guest this week.
I'm wasting my time with the stupid question? Drinking my whiskey?
No, I just wanted to ask you about my guest.
And who is your guest?
Deyan DENKOV. Apparently, you guys you know each other.
Are you kidding me? Are you really asking me this now?
Yes, I mean I don't want to upset you. I can see you're very busy.
Are you really talking about Deyan DENKOV?
Yes.
Legendary man. Exceptional designer. He was sitting next to me at Renault. Only doing cool shit. Only doing cool shit. You better watch it. Now get the fuck out.
So, dude, okay. Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Sofia, in the capital of Bulgaria. In Bulgaria. not at work anymore.
Are you? But what are you on? Are you finished now or what?
Well, I left Renault Group recently in December, a month ago.
Oh, and, wow! Okay.
I really felt I need a break, like not from Renault Group, but just from the industry. Like you know, there is this period when a designer or any creative person is you know, after certain years you have this moment where you really feel like you need to have a little break. So this is the moment for me now.
Wow, nice.
That's how I felt, and I rather prefer to do this now when I feel it than be in a situation where, you know, some people just burn out.
Yes, definitely.
So I just felt it's the right moment, and it was not an easy decision because I've been with them for quite a long time, and it's it feels almost like home there.
It seems that there's a lot of people that have been there for a very long time that find a home there.
Yeah, that's true. And recently also a lot of people left Renault Design, and on one side I have to say it was a bit strange, but there is a big movement in the car industry right now. A lot of people are changing positions, changing companies, and on one side it's really strange to see people that you know from so many years just leaving the company like this, but on the other hand I know it's good for the company as well, because they're gonna have some really fresh people coming from outside with different way of seeing the brand, and this is good for the brand. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, ultimately, I think I mean, these things are always painful in the short term, but in the long term, you're right. It's what makes the world spin.
Yeah, that's true, and it's good. I think it's a positive thing in the end.
Deyan, where did you? Sorry to ask such a shallow question, but where did you study?
I study in Bulgaria, but okay, here might surprise you, but actually I never studied design. Uh, okay, for the people who didn't know, I never studied design.
Wow. What did you study?
Um, I, s- my major was really, really technical. Uh, Shortly said, it's automation. And in short line, I'm supposed, if you give me a factory, I'm supposed to make it fully automated. Suppose. I almost don't remember anything from this anymore, but
But
uh, so yeah, it was more related to electronics, automation, and these sort of things. But it's not an art school. It's a technical university,
that's
technical college.
absolutely
Sorry.
that's fascinating. What? How did you become a designer then?
Well, to be honest, before getting in high school, I never thought that there's such thing as a car designers. I always thought that the engineers are doing everything, including the way the cars look, the styling. And the first year in high school, I met one of my really good friends. We were sitting together next to each other, and he's a big fan of Formula One. So he was buying these magazines and newspapers with cars. And he saw me that I was doodling some random stuff on the back of my notebooks, like nothing related with cars. It was more like airplanes and things like that. And then he asked me, "Can you draw me a car?" I said, "Of course I can draw you a car. I can draw an airplane. I can draw you a car." So he was very specific. He wanted a Formula One, and even more specific, the Ferrari's car for Formula One. So I drew him a Formula One, and then he was extremely unhappy from the tires. He said, "Why did you draw a flat tires?" And I was okay. I'm gonna make you another sketch now. And I was making another one and another one. And he was always not happy from something. And at one moment, I realized that drawing cars it's actually quite cool and fun. And then he showed me some sketches in one of the magazines. It was from an artist who was making these illustrations of future models for the for the magazine. Just guessing how let's say the next BMW is going to look like. And this was really fascinating for me. And so I started drawing cars at home. I started liking it and loving it. And, but unfortunately, in my country, there is no specific school for car design. And going to one of the big schools was really impossible for me. Like maybe only Pforzheim was affordable, but still not easy. But all the other schools, they were way too expensive for me back then. And even though back then my country was not in the European Union yet, so even more difficult to go somewhere.
What time?
Uh,
Sorry, what period is this now? What year
so
roughly?
I entered high school in 1996,
Oh,
and
so we're the same age, I think. When were you born?
yeah,
83?
82.
82. Okay, so I'm 83. 1 year between us.
Which month?
November.
Ah, cool. I'm in March.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, this is how it started for me, and this is how I started loving drawing cars. And I just kept doing this. Like all my notebooks like the like half of them were full of sketches in high school. And even some of my teachers were, I was thinking they're gonna be mad if they see my notebooks, but they were quite supportive. They would come in the middle of class and like, "What did you draw now?"
Really?
They would, yeah. And they'll like one of them, I remember she was having even requests. Like she really liked Opel Vectra back then, and she was like, "Ah, draw me an Opel Vectra." It's like, okay, as you say, you're the teacher. If that's gonna improve my grades. And yeah, I just kept on drawing. And after school, sometimes I was staying until 2 or 3 in the morning, just losing sense of time, just drawing and drawing and drawing. And yeah, that's how it started for me, like the love for car design.
Did you ever get like frustrated in trying to do something perfectly? Or was it
Um,
or was it just pure enjoyment?
I would say it's more pure enjoyment. Like, um, of course, there is always this thing, like, are you talking in general or back then?
No, sorry, I'm talking about then. And the reason why I ask is like
Uh-huh.
when I was going to college to get into university, I hadn't been drawing for a long time and I started drawing again. And for me, it was like I got satisfaction out of completing something, but I also experienced immense frustration trying to do something that I couldn't, which probably explains why I became a modeler at the end of the day. But I know, but you get people that are just really have to work insanely hard at it, and there are other designers where it comes a little bit easier,
I
and
see what you mean.
that's why I ask.
Well, for me was I would say it was more the enjoyment part. Of course, I was trying to get everything right, but I wouldn't say I was frustrated if something was not looking great. I remember sketching back home. Back then, I was in my room, and I found something that it's much more easier to do in Photoshop these days, and that was like right behind me, where I was sketching. I had a mirror, so every time I sketched something on A3 or A2, I don't know why I was sketching such a big piece of paper back then, but uh, I would sketch the car, and then I would turn back and I would see it in the mirror. It looked like a flipped image, but like looking at it from far away. So I would say I was more frustrated to get the right perspective and the right proportions than
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
else.
So then, Dayan, you finished university, and then can you just explain how you get a job as a car designer with a degree in automation?
Um, I'm sorry, there was a little bit of
Okay. I
it
I
was
s- I
frozen.
said I said the question was, can you explain how you finish university with a degree in automation and get a job as a car designer?
Uh, well, after I finished the college with the degree of automation, like I was pretty sure I would not go and automate a factory. This was sure for me. I found a job in first of all, I passed through some little like small jobs, including working in an ice cream factory for a night,
Nice.
and I was the Eskimo guy. I was the guy who was in the freezer and had to deal with all the ice cream. Uh, yeah, then I found a job in my hometown um, in a studio which was making advertising materials, photography, and etc. So I worked there for 2 years and a half, and I have to say maybe during this period I kind of gave up on the idea of studying car design or becoming a car designer because when I saw that it's impossible for me to join one of the big schools, and back then I was really thinking, okay, if I cannot join one of these schools, there is no way to enter the automotive world. Um, but 2 years into working into this place, I all of a sudden decided, okay, I will try again. I will start sketching cars again. And until then, I had a portfolio in car design news. Back then, they still had this portfolio parts where you can upload your stuff. And I had some really old sketches. I decided, okay, I will upload something new. Some of the last sketches I did. And by the way, after 2 years of not sketching cars, the big surprise for me was when I restarted sketching cars. I was much better than before.
That's so
I don't
irritating.
know
I
how
can't believe that.
I don't know how this happened. Honestly, really, it was a big surprise for me. So I uploaded my sketches, and then the editors of Car Design News decided to publish them in featured. Like they liked the sketches, I guess. So I was on the first page for a week, and it was exactly the time when probably one of the most cool French guys I know in my life, Stéphane Barrau, saw my sketches on the first page and wrote me an email because back then he was just assigned as a chief designer of the newly opened studio in Bucharest of Renault.
Ah.
So back then apparently he was looking for a team. So people from the region, from the Eastern Europe, let's say, because Renault back then had studios in a lot of different locations around the world, and in each studio, the team was built from people from this region. So he saw my sketches. He wrote me an email. I still keep it. He just introduced himself and was like, I would like to invite you on an interview. So I can imagine my face when I read this email. And 2 weeks later, I was in Bucharest already for an interview. And I remember back then it was him as a chief designer and Philippe Ponceau, who was the director of the studio, the first director of the studio. And I remember I brought them. I think there were 2 or 3 folders, like this much thick, with hand sketches, just doodles, Like I didn't have like a proper portfolio, or I just took everything with me. So I just gave him this. I just left this on the table, and fortunately for me, he's one of the designers who really enjoy ideation sketches and um, this kind of sketches. So he was really pleased. He was going through all of them, and I remember he was quite happy to see something on paper, and so he gave me a task uh, to sketch the next generation Renault Megane. And back then I didn't know that he's actually the designer of the second generation of Renault Megane, who has quite iconic design, I have to say. And still until today, it's one of the cars which I really like because it was so bold back in the day. So yeah, for 2 months I was sketching back home, and I was invited to a second interview. And this time it was the whole room was full with people from Renault, and I showed them my sketches, and they just offered me to stay with them for 6 months as a tryout to see if I can match with the team, if I can work with them. And after the 6 months, they invited me to stay.
Wow.
That's the
That's amazing, dude. That's incredible. And
yeah.
and sorry, no, carry on.
No, I just wanted to say I consider myself like one of the maybe the first people maybe who got lucky and using um, the virtual space like the internet to be seen somehow.
That's so what that sort of time is like what, mid 2000s or
So this was no, this was already later. So this is already 2007
okay.
when I was
Okay.
contacted. I started working in this advertising agency in 2005.
Okay.
2005 and 2007 it's when all this was happening, and I joined Renault in November 2007.
And when you started in that studio, Dayan, was it did you ever feel like intimidated at all? Can you talk about that period a little bit?
Actually, I wouldn't say intimidated. I never felt like this because um, everyone was so enthusiastic and so motivated back then. When I joined the studio, I think their first designer in the studio. I mean, I wasn't. I wouldn't consider myself as designer back then, but uh, I was the first guy who joined the studio aside from the team that already came from France, and the studio was just being built. Um, it was located in an old building in the central part of Bucharest, and there were still some renovations going on, so people were just joining the team, and we were all around maybe 24, 25 years old maximum,
Wow.
and no intimidation at all. It was very interesting period for me, and I was trying to give my best and to learn, of course, because this is how it happened with me. Like, all right, I was already following what's happening in the automotive world, but as far as car design goes, it was just my own experiments at home. And also Stefan, who was the chief designer of the studio, he's incredible guy. He's super friendly. He's one of the people who is pushing you to grow. You know, who can see a potential in someone and make him grow, like teach him. And I would say we were all pretty lucky to start with a guy like him.
How long were you in that studio for? Sorry, I think I cut out there. I was asking how long you were in that studio for before going to France.
I spent 5.5 years in Romania, and I would say really incredible 5.5 years there. Um, uh, it was so much fun, honestly. I
They've got
remember at one point
great,
the
great.
whole studio.
They've got great driving roads there as well, don't they?
Yeah, they have. In uh, I guess you mean that one in the mountain.
Yes, yes.
Uh, yeah, they have Romania. It's really beautiful country. Actually, we traveled a lot when we were there, and uh, one of the cool thing in the studio was that, as I said, everyone back then we were all so young, and a lot of really talented people um, were in the studio at that time. Um, like we are all now in different companies, working in different companies, but um, it was a lot of fun. Like the Stefan and Philippe, they really managed to organize the studio in such way that we were more like a small family. And I even remember at one moment the whole studio was so full. Um, even the smallest room which we were using for storage, there was a desk inside. Yeah, really great time. Really great time.
And were you at the back of your mind? Did you always intend to go over to France?
Um, Honestly, before that, I never considered it. I never thought of it. Like I never thought specifically of any country where I would like to go. For me, the goal was really the dream was to join uh, a car company, a car design studio. And but yes, of course, when working in Romania, at one point uh, after working on some of the projects, of course, there was this will already, let's say, and just maybe towards the end, maybe the fifth year, where I could feel that the only way to develop further is to move to the main studio in France. And of course, I like the country a lot. Like before moving there, I visit France a few times, and I have to say I like it quite a lot.
Sorry, I think I cut out again. Sorry, Deyan. And did you go and work straight for Renault, or did you go into the Alpine studio first?
I moved there in the studio of Renault because back then Alpine didn't have um, a dedicated design team. Uh, Alpine was using designers from Renault, and actually the reason to move to France was Alpine because um, I started sketching the convergence model for Alpine while I was in Romania already.
Oh wow.
Uh, because uh, back then there were so many projects happening at the same time. It was the first years of Lawrence um, joining Renault Design and leading Renault Design. So the whole range was about to change. So there was plenty of work, and Renault decided to start the project for Alpine as well. Like very very secret project in a way, like very much an initiative. And back then, Stefan Bora, who I told you he was the chief designer of the studio in Bucharest, just a few months before that, he moved back to France because his mission was over, and he became chief of project for Renault Sport back then. And this is when the project was starting. So he was just looking for some designers to illustrate the idea for how the future Alpine can look like. So he asked us as well, few of the designers, actually all the designers in the studio in Romania, if we have time in our free time just to make just few illustrations. Just because everybody was so busy back then, as I told you. And we did some sketches, and surprisingly for me, for us actually, one day, one day the new director of the studio in Bucharest, Jeff Gardiner here, he just arrived in our room in the design studio in Bucharest, and he just stand next to me and he asked the question, "Do you know anything about any Alpine?" And I was so surprised because nobody was supposed to know about this thing. And he said that apparently they selected one of my sketches for to build a convergence model for the project. And
But sorry, what is it? What is a convergence model?
Convergence model is when it's the very early stage of a project, when we need to sell the idea for the top management. Okay, we have the concept of the car, we know what the car should be, but then we need to give it a shape. So we're making a convergence model which is showing how the car could look like, and usually this convergence model is also covering most of the technical requirements that we have on the package.
Okay.
But it's kind of like a teaser. It's kind of like the model that has to sell the idea for the project. And normally, usually from this stage, the top management will decide, shall we continue with the project or no? And so the project went on. People like the idea of a small berlinette style of car, like a lightweight and etc. And this was the reason why I moved to Paris, because at the beginning, when my sketches were selected for the convergence model, I was working with the modeler in Techno Center from Romania. It was a bit difficult, I have to say, because when we finished work at 6, he would send me the model, and then I would stay until 1 or 2 in the morning in the studio to sketch for him for the next day, so we can keep on working. And when the project became official, I was invited to join the team in Techno Center. So this is how I moved.
And we're talking about the A110.
The A110 is.
Wow. Dude, before we carry on, I wanted to ask you, you obviously went to your interview with this stack of sketches. Were you able to use like Photoshop at that point?
Very, very basic knowledge of how to use Photoshop for renderings. I was using Photoshop back then to edit pictures, because it was part of my job in that little company where I worked, in that little studio. But I didn't know back then still how to use properly Photoshop to color sketches. I did some during these 2 months when I get my task for the next generation Renault Megane. I still don't know how I managed to do some renders with the mouse, because I didn't have any tablet back then. It was for me, it was something completely alien. This like, to have a tablet and use it for sketching. So I remember I was coloring everything, even the first year in Romania. I think I was coloring everything using just the mouse, and have no idea how to do this now.
was there anybody that sat down with you and showed you like how to construct a rendering at all, or was this something you worked out yourself?
I'm sorry, Sam, can you repeat again?
So
Because there was a...
yeah, it's okay. Was there anybody that showed you how to construct a rendering, or was this all self-taught?
Oh, I was watching, I started watching back then some tutorials. It was, I remember there was not many video tutorials, but
Yeah.
there were some which were step by step in some blogs or websites. So I was trying to repeat the steps and trying to do it in this way. I remember also back then I learned as well from some of the Russian guys who were posting a lot at that time in car design ru as well, .ru. So yeah, I was looking how to do this, and then step by step I started adapting all this uh, to match for me. Uh, with all the techniques that I felt comfortable with using. And then one day when I tried sketching on Cintiq, my life changed completely.
But I think it speaks a lot about your level of sketching though, because if somebody hired you based on just raw sketches, that I mean it says a hell of a lot about your sketching ability. I mean, especially at that stage. And I think what I've learned, like you see a lot now, and particularly in you see a lot of Renault sketches and Alpine sketches as well, where you guys tend to just put very very minimal color into the rendering, and that is only possible with a really solid sketch. So if your
Sorry,
sketch is rubbish, so
yeah,
yeah, never. It's okay. I was just saying that the fact that you were hired based on your sketching ability, without any proper renderings or anything, it says a lot about your quality of sketching. It's obviously very well. It is very impressive, but it would be interesting for me to see the sketches that you were doing at that stage when you were first starting out. And I'm sure there must have been, some pretty good work there if they were hiring you just off those.
I would. I don't want to disappoint you, but I'm not sure there was such a great level back then. Uh, I think what they noticed more was maybe the fact that I was searching for ideas a lot back then, because of course I had a huge progress during during the years sketching, and as well, like each chief designer, each design director, also every designer actually has its own preferences and style that they like. There's some people who like a lot renderings, other they like a lot doodles, because this is where the ideas are getting born. And in this case, the chief designer is one of the people who really likes the ideation process more, the search for the ideas, and also sketches which are made on paper. Um, um, because I have to say now in today's time, we're more and more doing Photoshop renders or photoshopped
Kit
images
bashing.
from VRED. Yeah, exactly. And it's pity that we're kind of losing this workflow with sketching a lot on paper. But as you mentioned in Alpine, this is one of um, the good things actually, since the team is not so big. There is not such a huge rush that everything should happen immediately, or sometimes it does, but you still have time to enjoy doing this kind of sketching, to go through this process. And but honestly, at the end of the day, uh, to me, this is just a tool, like the most important thing is to be able to show your ideas. If it's on paper, if it's on Photoshop, if it's 3D, all these are just tools. So the idea should be the most important.
Deyan, do you think, as you were mentioning, like, you in the Alpine studio for specifically, you guys had a bit more time to maybe enjoy, as you say, and I think that you're probably not the only one in your position now where you feel like you need a bit of a break because
Mhm.
there's just sometimes too much expected of us in general. Do you think that
Sure.
do you think that's it's getting progressively worse and worse?
I think, yeah, I noticed that during all these years that everything kind of accelerated. Um, I have the feeling that right now everything should happen almost immediately, if it's not for yesterday already. Uh, when we have a task and you almost have to react immediately, and like Monday you have the task and Friday you already have go with one, uh, like selecting the final design, which is super stressful if you have to think about it. And all this is coming from the huge competition that is happening now between all the brands. It was always a competition, but I find that right now it's really craziness. Like, I have the feeling everyone wants to do uh, everything so fast. To be the first. Like the um, the deadlines are really really getting shorter and shorter, and we have shorter time to make cars. And all this is coming. It's not only for uh, all this pressure is not going only to the design team. It's for everyone, to engineers and the whole company. But yeah, I would say there is this kind of tendency that everything should happen faster and faster.
The thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean that the results are so much better. I mean, if anything, they suffer, and I think that um, you know there it's always been like this to an extent where the we always seem to be very reactionary, and it doesn't matter which brand you're talking about. Like every
Mhm.
studio I've been in, they'll be like, oh my god, Renault have just done this car, or Volkswagen have just done this, or probably not Volkswagen, but BMW have just done this car, or whoever, and we need to do our own version of that. And
Yeah,
there's very few, there's like, in the last 10 years, there's maybe been like, a handful of moments where you feel like something really original has happened. And that originality comes from having a vision rather than, constantly rinsing every single person in the studio for more ideas, more ideas, more ideas, so
exactly,
we can pick something from the wall. And I,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I just wanted to say I completely agree with you.
it's, it's,
I completely agree.
it's, the thing is, yes, it's true. I think it's like that probably in most studios now. And I just wonder if, what can be done to kind of step away from that mentality, that way of thinking. It seems like, there's some great leaders out there that realize that, it's not necessarily about having 200 sketches on the wall to compete with, or to choose. It's like, it's having a vision and committing to that vision and executing that vision to the highest degree possible. That's where you create something remarkable, not from having, jumping from idea to idea and rinsing everybody in the process.
Exactly, I agree with you. It's to me, in a way, it could be also counterproductive if every week we need to discover the hot water. Like every week you have um, to find a completely new idea and concept for the project we work on. Um, and talking about vision, there is something which I'm really glad I had a chance to see is when for example.
Oh, we've lost him. So we were saying, you were about to say, we were talking about vision, and you said when Lawrence
Yes,
first joined the company.
yes, when Lawrence first joined the Renault design, uh, this was I was already in Renault for about a year, and it was really great timing because I found out how interesting it is to see all the changes that can happen when you have a new leader, when you have a new director of design, and it was very interesting to look how to watch how Lawrence was organizing everything because uh, um, when he arrived, I remember he was asking us all the same question: "What is Renault?" And it was quite cool actually to see how your director of design can be so close with you. Like he just enters the room and like he's part of the team. And I remember it didn't take him so long to figure out what to do with Renault, how he has to first to set up the whole range and to create his vision for the brand and his strategy with the Marguerite. And uh, clearly after we had this strategy and this direction from him, uh, it was much more easy to imagine what is Renault and what the Renault could be. And I completely agree with you when you have a leader that has a clear vision or creates a clear vision about the brand and the future of this brand. It's much easier for people to follow and to create this recipe. And once you have the recipe, it's much more easy to work, and you can concentrate on actually giving a really good quality on all this. And I have to say, as well for me right now in times where everyone is trying to compete. Of course, everyone is always trying to compete, but what I mean is probably the brands should stop trying to make the next Tesla killer, for an example. It's this for me, it's such a finite game that they're doing that it's it's not good for me, honestly. They should just concentrate to be themselves and to maybe have more of infinite game, let's say. Like Tesla is not competing with Mercedes, for example. Tesla is competing with Tesla. They're trying to improve themselves. Same thing with why a lot of people like Apple, for example. Like Apple is not competing with other brands. They're just themselves and they're trying to do the best. So I think the car companies should do the same, not trying to be like BMW or Mercedes killer or Tesla killer or whatever. It's they just should follow their own way and just be themselves and not care too much about um, what the competitors are doing. I mean, of course, we all see what competitors are doing, but when this becomes, I think, when this becomes the main thing in mind, it's very easy to lose direction. Because at the end of the day, it's just you have only one target, like a very small target, like just to make a car that beats another car, but then after that, what? It's, to me, it just doesn't make sense. It has to be much more long term thinking.
Dude, you know the thing for me, I couldn't agree with you more. By the way, on that, I think it's 100% accurate. I've never understood that mentality of like, let's look what Audi's doing, let's look what everybody else is doing. And on the subject of Tesla specifically, I think that most OEMs and most people actually have grossly misunderstood that company as a whole. They've just gone, oh, okay, we need to put in put an electric powertrain in our car, and we need to produce as many as we physically can, and we'll and do it at all costs, and that's what's going to kill Tesla. Well, by the way, Tesla is not just a fucking car company, you know, with an electric engine. It's a conglomerate of startups which encompass autonomy, AI, energy storage, and it's an ecosystem of products, you know, and it's and people they OEMs don't fucking get that. And also, if we put Tesla aside for a second and we say, like, you know, okay, Audi, for example, is saying like, I want to let's create a competitor to, I don't know, whatever, a fucking BMW 3 Series. You know, when you do that, you are benchmarking against something that was produced 5 years ago, that was developed 5 years ago already. So you're constantly almost going backwards.
That's the point. That's the point. That's what I meant when I was saying that having this mentality of like pretty much everyone now has, like, to make the Tesla killer with this example. They're setting up themselves with a finite goal, you know, like something that, as you said, the car is already done. You know, they're doing the thing for the next 10 years now. Yeah. And this means that we are at least 10 years behind. And if the companies don't start thinking, okay, this is what they have now, what will be the next 2 steps? Not 1, but 2 steps.
Yeah.
And trying to create their own vision for this, there is no way of success. Okay, like pretty much all the companies these days, they can make good quality cars. But as you mentioned, Tesla is not just cars. It's way much bigger than cars, and a lot of people are failing to understand this.
It's been such a misunderstood company, and I think, you know, like what the biggest misconception about him is that he is not. I mean, it's maybe a bit more obvious now because everybody's finally woken up, but. You know, that guy's he doesn't give a shit about next year or even the next 5 years. He's looking like 20, 30 years into the future. So Wall Street turns around and go, oh, listen, Tesla's in big shit today because the quarter earnings for the Model 3 are out and they haven't reached their target. He doesn't give a fuck about that because that is insignificant in the bigger plan. You know, they just like, they never looked at, by the way, this guy is basically putting a factory on every single planet. Sorry, on every single continent. And they also failed to realize this infrastructure of superchargers that he was just building everywhere, along with all the other stuff. Like, they're just fucking stupid. And you're talking about, companies, big OEMs with infinite amounts of resources to look into that sort of stuff properly. And then they come up with fucking retarded statements like, "Oh, we're gonna be the biggest electric vehicle company producer in the next 5 years, and we're gonna kill Tesla." You will never, with that kind of fucking retarded mentality. Sorry, dude. It's hilarious and infuriating at the same time, and I get so. I don't know why, but it's laughable. It's laughable, and I get really fired up when I think about that kind of mentality, So, yeah.
No, I can understand you perfectly, and I think one of the reasons why they think so is because they really think, most of the companies, they really think as a classic automotive companies do. But to me, this business is already changing a lot. It's not the same anymore.
No.
And I really hope some of those big companies, they realize this and they have much long-term strategy. Because as you mentioned, okay, like these things that are coming in short term, like, okay, the sales this quarter of the year like are lower. That's bullshit, honestly. It's like all companies are passing through this kind of stuff. It's really the vision that matters, and and Elon Musk is definitely a guy who sees far in future. It's a long journey. It's a long journey for him, and this is what makes them successful, I think, because again, he's having an infinite game in this case, not only with Tesla but with SpaceX as well, and
Neuralink as well, yeah.
Neuralink, yeah. It's really,
dude,
like infinite game.
It's totally an infinite game, and I think the thing that ends up that frustrates the hell out of me is that when I look at all the resources that these big OEMs have got that are just fucking wasted by the amount of just people, empty suits that walk around with their fucking clipboards and organize stupid workshops that are completely pointless, customer car clinics and all this sort of stuff with just aimless, like no intention, no vision, no strategy, and there's so many smart, talented people in these companies that just, they just get left by the wayside, because of this archaic thinking. As you said, like the companies, the automotive companies as we know them historically is like, that game is over. The last 80 years has been to go like, let's build bigger, faster, stronger. That it's been that mentality. But there's so many fragments of that business model that need to be changed now in order to, it's become so much more complex and so much more deep, and there's so many different tributaries that are flowing off this main river, which is the car company now. So like, things like autonomy, AI, products. Does a car need to be as fucking big as a Range Rover? The questions like this. And it's not until some company comes along and produces a really cool I'm going to quote this again because I do it all the time, but the Twizy, I think, like, what the fuck happened to that thing? That was a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's something really interesting in that space which nobody's really executed on, and some company's going to come along and they're going to do it, and then every single OEM is going to go, we need to do the same thing as them, and then it's that fucking educated fools,
And you know what's the sad thing in this is that you know what you mentioned, and it will come a company that will do it, and then the big OEMs will come and say, okay, we have to do this. But the ugly truth is that all of these big OEMs have some projects hidden in the dark corner of the company that already have been proposed long time ago,
That's what
but
I'm
nothing has
saying.
been done.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying, dude.
it's
That's what I'm saying.
all the companies have this kind of project, all of them, and unfortunately, a lot of these ideas they go completely forgotten really fast. Like for a lot of companies, the business, of course, the business is important, but when the business becomes the only thing you follow, again, it's like talking for the sales for the first quarter of the year. You know, it's not nothing more than this.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Yeah.
also the other thing
Yeah.
is the big companies, the big OEMs are they're moving way too slow. They're such a big machines that so many things has to happen. Just a small movement to appear. You know, some decision to be taken. There is, I would say, not as efficient as a newly starting companies. I would say. You know, even
No.
a good example. Again, I don't want to give like just Tesla as an example, but there are plenty of, you know, it's like
But they're
Tesla,
fucking
Lucid,
awesome.
and etc. Exactly, and it's just all about efficiency. Decisions are taken immediately. Decisions are taken um, straight away. And as you mentioned, you know, just because there is a vision, and when the company has a vision, I think it will be more easy to take a decision because you just follow the logic of the vision, and that's all.
Yeah, and committing to that vision as well. You know, like again, you know, on the subject of him or Tesla, like, dude, that company was started in fucking 2008, right before or in the middle of that bit of that crisis. Now, if you had gone to any, like, you know, business school and said like, is now a good time to start a business, every one of those institutions would say it's possibly the worst time you could ever think of starting a business, you know, because you're not going to get capital and blah blah blah. But you know, that shows you how committed he is to the end goal, you know, and he wasn't looking at, you know, making it through 6 months or 3 months or even 2 years. You know, there was a big fucking game plan, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm repeating myself now.
Pretty well for him, no? It worked pretty well for the brand.
Well,
for
dude,
the
no, but well, yeah, exactly. And would anybody have predicted that would have been, you know, it's turned into like the biggest company, well, one of the biggest companies in the world. Nobody saw that.
Yeah. But again, because for me in the automotive industry, just all the companies are thinking in the automotive way of doing stuff, and this company is not at all like this. Okay, the car is there, but the car is just a small part of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a
Exactly.
small part.
It's exactly.
It's much bigger
Dude,
picture.
So, Deyan, what are your thoughts on these like like faux or fake startups that big companies, big OEMs create within their ecosystem to be agile and use all the fucking buzzwords of the startup land, to think freely.
Can you repeat again the first part, because it was the connection.
What are your thoughts?
Not good.
What are your thoughts on these faux startups, like not fake startups, but like, you know, standalone companies that that big OEMs create within the business structure for them for these
Okay.
people to work independently, to think freely, and to come up with innovative ideas?
Honestly, I don't see how you can work freely and like when you're part of the big company, it's like to me just it doesn't match somehow because whenever you have the control from the big company, how can you be free and like okay, you create a little team there, but they might be really creative people there, have great ideas, but if this is still connected to a big OEM which is still thinking the old way, sorry, this cannot work. Like there are two scenarios what will happen for me. Uh, like one that okay, whatever is produced as ideas there will be just everyone will just clap, they'll just be like, oh, bravo, it's really amazing job. And then next month this department it's doesn't exist anymore because the company just don't understand what they saw. Um, and the other scenario to be just a short-living thing because it's part of a much bigger organism which is not functioning properly already. So to me, to succeed, these kind of startups, they should be really, really independent. The decision should not be taken by the big company that created them. The big company might get the profit after, I would say, when this startup become successful. But to succeed, I don't see it working within the big company.
The problem with big OEMs is that they are so hell bent on needing a proof of concept before they put money into anything. They need to see a working example of show me who's made money out of that first, and show me where it's worked first. And in with that sort of thinking, you're never going to truly innovate.
Exactly, because again, this is the mindset of I wouldn't even say business, because in the business people still take quite a brave decisions. They somehow goes against the flow and they succeed. But I mean more in the business where people invest in the sure thing, like again, they don't see the idea behind. They want to see the profit margins, the numbers, but not the big goal, not the big thing behind. And again, everything is to me it's short-term thinking.
It's so it's a very interesting thing, and I think like on the subject of business in general, not that I'm a fucking business expert, but ultimately, like every business book that you read or every, and even curriculums in universities are established. Okay, if we keep it on design education specifically, every curriculum or syllabus is being developed based on existing case studies that have happened in the past. It's and those things, those cases that were studied were the original cases that were studied were based on something that was innovative in the first place. And that might have worked in that scenario, but it might not work in the current scenario. It's a very difficult thing to I don't know, to get to the bottom of, because there's always going to be a committee of people needing to make decisions at the top in a big.
I can understand in a big companies the risks they're taking, because okay, at the end of the day, they have to think about the shareholders and the business part. Um, but still, they can. I can still see that they can take much braver decisions in some cases. Not every time should be about um, the win, about making the money right now. But really setting up the right goals, setting up the right path, and I believe the success will come after.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a time. I think there's a time for investment, for investing in your ideas, in your infrastructure, in your resources, whatever. And then there's a time for counting your beans. Of course,
Yeah,
it's not to say that you can be reckless. It's not to say that you shouldn't pay. Obviously, those things need to be monitored, but you can't. At some point, you need to invest in the future, and you need to innovate, and you can't do that if you're constantly following what you see in front of you or what the market is producing at the moment.
exactly. It's kind of like when you're building a house, you're not starting with a chimney, right? You're you have to you have to set up a good base. You have to choose a good land, like not to build your house on a sand, for an example. And
Yes.
once you
Yes.
have the good base, no matter how much it costs you to have this good base, then whatever you build on top, it will be solid. It will stay on solid ground. And right now, sometimes I have the feeling that, it's almost like looking like someone is building the house starting with the windows and then trying to build the walls around. And
Yeah, I think, I mean, it does feel like that. It feels like that a lot, and I just think that a lot of people, there's a lot of people that are very confused about the current landscape and
mhm.
what to do next, and the reality is that nobody knows for sure, and at some point you need to yeah, you've got to experiment and you've got to try new things and you've got to come up with um ideas that and a vision that you believe in. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going on and repeating myself now, so
Yeah, but
I'll shut
as
up.
soon as it's something that it's been said a lot of times, but as soon as it's something which is really um, improving somehow people's life, or like making something for the majority of the people, and not just being concentrated on, like, doing confectionery, like car after car after car, but to be like more global product. Um, to me, it's just really simple. Just follow that vision, just um, just searching for the logic of your vision in every decision you have to take on the way, and not getting distracted but by what other people are doing, or getting uh, stressed or frustrated that somebody did something else, and trying to implement this in your product. Um, for me, when creating a product, yeah, just follow the direction you took and just follow the logic of this direction, and that's it.
But you need one to start off with.
Exactly, exactly.
um Dayan, I um understand that you have primarily done exteriors. Have you dabbled in interiors at all?
Unfortunately, I never did an interior. I quite appreciate, and I'm really impressed by the interior designers, because honestly, it's way more complex job than exterior designers. Um, I really admire them a lot, and I never tried myself. I wouldn't mind trying, But yes, I was until now. I'm always doing exterior design.
It's funny when, I don't know, like when we were at university, which was, I don't know, a while ago now, definitely more than 10 years. Actually going on 15 years. I remember there was kind of this misconception almost that, like, if you couldn't become an exterior designer, you could become an interior designer, as if it was something less substantial. And I um I couldn't it couldn't be further from the truth. I think there's, as you said, it's an incredibly complex process, and you're creating an environment with a conglomerate of products to make up that whole environment, and they all need to work together. And there's all these awkward spaces that need to be designed, but they yeah, they don't shine necessarily, but they've got to be executed well, and actually to the point where nobody notices them.
Yeah, and
So it's a very, very
yeah,
yeah.
and as I said, I really admire the interior designers because I don't know, just thinking about like all the things that have to be designed in one interior. Okay, for the exterior, we have this big mass that we need to make it dynamic or statutory, like beautiful, but it's still one big object. But as you mentioned, in interior, it's creating an environment and like paying all this attention to every single detail that's in this environment. It's truly incredible, truly incredible. I really, really appreciate the work the interior designers are doing, and as you mentioned as well, I completely disagree that being interior designer is kind of like almost like a downgrade from exterior designer. Quite the opposite, I would say.
Dude, on the subject of creating, what is your personal take on exterior design with regard to um, detailing? Because I'm asking specifically with regard to, like, the front and the rear, the relationship between the front face and the rear of the car. There are some brands, no names mentioned, where, like, the front lights are square, so the rear lights need to be fucking exactly square as well. And there has to be this very literal translation between the front and the rear. But if you look at something like in your case, the A110, I know this is a legacy car as well, which was obviously designed a long time ago, but just using it as a hypothetical example, the front looks completely different to the rear. However, there's a cohesion there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, about the exterior design, my personally how I always see and approach it is I believe in simplicity. And regarding the connection between the front end and the rear end, yeah, a lot of times we tend to sketching the front and then start sketching the rear, you're almost sketching another front, which is honestly a bit odd for me. It's not easy to find the balance, to be honest. Not every time. Sometimes you struggle. Like for me personally, like when I sketch a car, for some kind of reason, for me the body side and the rear end comes rather easily, and I kind of struggle to find the front end of the car, and
Yeah.
because the front is usually what people remember as well. It's kind of the face of
Yeah.
the car, and um, I'm not on the opinion that the front and the rear should repeat itself necessarily. they can to me what starts in the front, it should naturally flow towards the rear, and they should tell the a whole story, like starting from the front, walking towards walking to the side, and the rear should really finish the story in a very, very nice way. And okay, it's okay in the case of A110, for an example. I'm quite proud of the rear end because this is what most of the people is going to see on the car while driving.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have one,
No, I
Dan?
don't have one, but I would really love to have one day. Most likely, I would try to buy one in the um, let's say the last year of production, because I couldn't
Okay.
get one when there was the launch edition, but I would really love to have some of the.
Why were they none available, or
I'm sorry?
you couldn't get? Were they none available?
They sold really quick. Honestly, they sold for just zero time. Like everything was really fast, and even also most of the cars, they were already pre-ordered long time ago. And but I'll try to get.
Jesus.
I would probably try
Wow.
to get one from the last ones that will be produced. And there's some really
And will
there's some really cool versions that will come as well.
It's a very cool car. That and speaking of interiors, a beautiful interior. I really like that
Yeah,
interior as well. Exterior is great as well, by the way, but the interior is also, I really like the interior.
well, it's Laurent Negroni. He's a super talented designer, and he's one of those guys who has really a very meticulous look on every single detail in the car. He did really great job with the interior of the A110. Even though that I remember during the project there were a lot of
Yeah,
restrictions in terms of budget, because I remember his sketches and some of the things he wanted to have in the car, and unfortunately we couldn't. But still, even with all the restrictions that he had, I agree, he did a really great job, really great job.
Dayan, I spoke to our mutual friend Alan DeRosier the other day, and he said that I have to ask you about Japan as well and the influence it had on you.
Oh, Japan is, I would say, one of the best time in my life. It's a really different world. I'm pretty sure that everyone whoever had the chance to spend even a little bit of time there, living there, would say exactly the same. It's just an incredible culture, incredible country, and um, I had the chance to meet a lot of really nice people, and uh, who really see the world really different, and also regarding our job, the way the guys there design cars, it's also different from us. Um, uh, I
How
really,
so?
in the
In what
respect that,
respect?
we tend in Europe, I would say, or in the Western world, when we design a car or like draw a car, in the sketches, we try to resolve pretty much everything from the very beginning. Every single corner, every line, has to be more or less precise and resolved. And the guys there, they draw the feeling. They there is nothing really that much resolved, I would say, in the beginning, but they're really trying to get the emotion. And they draw with light. They don't draw with lines. They draw with light. And it's really amazing when you see some stuff on the wall. Sometimes they're so abstract, but so beautiful and so unusual. And the most incredible thing for me was that they were able to translate these incredible shapes and ideas on a car later on. But yeah, this is how they design cars. They try to get the feeling and the emotion first.
There's a is there then there's a strong separation between the real early sketches and getting to the hardcore problem solving of executing it into a model.
Can you just repeat the first part, because there was we lost connection again.
I said then there's evidently a big separation between the real early sketches where you're talking about them create like illustrating emotion, for example, or an idea, versus the problem solving part of executing it into a model. Is there a big gap between those two parts of the process? Is it separated?
That's the surprising thing, actually, that which I really admire, is once they get the emotion they design, they're trying to do the best to keep it on the final car. Of course, sometimes due to technical issues, as we all know, it's not always possible to keep everything. But I really admire that the guys in Nissan and Infiniti, from what I saw, they really managed to translate this into the final design, into something that has wheels, that needs to have engine, and this is just the way they work. This is just the way they work. For me, at the beginning, it was very something so different that I really didn't know how to approach the design there, because I noticed a big difference between the sketches I was doing versus the sketches the designers in Nissan and Infiniti were doing. Like mine were, in a way, the typical like Western way of doing stuff, where everything is really resolved, like where are the wheel arches, how things were gonna look almost at the end. But in Japan, they like a lot this mystery, the mysterious feeling, when you just have the pure emotion, but you not necessarily know what's happening in this area of the car or this area of the car. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it correctly, but
no, I totally understand it. I just wonder, like, how much is there a place for that kind of working in today's world of faster, quicker, now get it done as quickly as possible?
This I don't know, because with the way you describe, which is the reality right now, to me it's more or less almost a mechanical way of doing stuff. When you have such a short time of doing stuff, you tend to design or draw things that are already known, like with little or more change, but already known, because this is what's in your brain. you don't have if you don't have the time to let your brain
Yes.
be free and create something on the paper, like something new, or imagine something completely new. I don't see how this could work, but I think there in Nissan and Infinity they kind of managed to have a good balance between the two, because sometimes there is the time to develop a certain design. It's way too long. Like you can imagine, like a whole year just to sketch on a single project, trying to find a design is it's way too long. But also having just 2 weeks is way too short. And I find that in GDC they find a good balance between the two. There is enough time for the ideation part, enough time for the creation. Then there is definitely a lot of very experienced designers there who know how to take this idea and translate it into onto the technical frame without losing too much of it.
It's going to be interesting to see what the car industry specifically is going to look like within design in the future. Like, because designers and other creatives are going to have, well, we already have a lot more options available to us, with regard to other creative pursuits, in other, whether it be concept art or the whole NFT space. If you do it right, you can obviously do pretty well out of that. And, all the other emerging startups that require industrial or car design skills. And I wonder if that, companies are going to be forced to pay to treat their employees better the more options they've got available in the future, and that includes giving them enough time to finish a project, for example. But I wonder how much how far it will have to be pushed before like real significant change happens in that space. It's going to be very interesting to see how that evolves in the future, because at some point it's a very long-winded way of saying that at some point, everyone will just leave and go elsewhere where they are paid better and looked after better. And then at some point, the big OEMs will go, fuck, maybe we should treat Frank a bit better and, offer him a decent wage and let him, let's not try and make him do 3 cars in a month. Let's just let him do 2, but obviously that also requires some pushback with the upper management, where it's going to require some fight within design to change things. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves in the future.
Yeah.
I hate that I
with you.
can't make my points a lot. I hate that I can't make these points or questions a lot quicker. It's just my fucking deranged brain that doesn't work the way that I want it to. I think it's my I don't know, my ADD or whatever. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand very well what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
yeah, there is probably something like this, that the companies these days are let's say pushing the boundaries of all of their employees, and maybe sometimes we forget that everyone who joins those companies is there for a very good reason. Like we all wanted to be there. We all like what we do. We love what we do, but we should be given the condition to do the best from what we can do. And
that's a very, very good point. Yeah.
and definitely in the creative part of this, like talking specifically into the design. In the design, we all know very well that sometimes you can have the most brilliant idea in 5 minutes, but sometimes can take five months. And at the end, a good idea, it's a good idea. So it should be let to develop somehow. I don't like when people has to be pushed too much or too strong, and because then the stress and the feeling that you have to do your job as soon as possible, like you have a deadline in 1 hour, you have to make the greatest design ever. This never works in the brain of a designer or whoever. Actually, it's not like the designers are such a special people. It's like yeah, this is where it comes also the leadership. The leaders normally they see all this. They see where the strengths of one person versus the strengths of the other person, and that's why it's very important when people become managers. Like, that's why it's not a random. Also, when people are selected to be managers, to deal well with the team. Usually, those are people who know really well the team. They know how to deal with this and how to use the strengths of each one in the best direction possible.
Well, they should, but it's not always the case. I mean, I don't know what it's like at Renault, but yeah, I mean, like, in a lot of big companies, it's kind of like, well, Johnny's been doing his job for 5 years, so he should become a manager. And it's like, well, maybe Johnny is an arsehole and he doesn't know how to look after people. It shouldn't work like that, but it does work like that in a lot of places. But I think. But what you're saying is absolutely correct. It's like a great leader will see the strengths and weaknesses in individual people, and make that and say, like, Deyan's really good at this one particular thing and Frank's really good at that. So we're going to let them do those two things, like a divide and conquer mentality, and those two separate strengths complement the whole team to make a stronger end result, rather than expecting Frank to do the same thing just as well as you do, or vice versa.
Exactly.
So that's a very good point. And I think I've also seen it where they like where in a big OEM it's convenient to just push onto everybody that they should all be able to do everything. It's like, well, dude, at the end of the day, we were all employed based on a specific skill set, and those skill sets should be utilized, per. Fuck, my brain's getting worse and worse. I'll shut up. But you know what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should use the people properly.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. And I think just on the whole, like, just don't be a dick. I mean, you just be nice to people, and also, like, for fuck's sakes, if you've got if you're in charge of a team, if you're in charge of a group of people, look after those people. Protect them from the bullshit above. That's the art of great leadership. Mm-hmm. That you protect them from that shit. And you and by doing that, by nurturing this group of people, they are gonna make you look fucking awesome at the end of the day. It's just how it works. But if you sit there and you fear mongering everybody and trying to, like, push people to their limits all the time, at the end of the day, if those people don't have options and they're forced to stay, you're definitely not going to get the best out of them, and as soon as they can leave, they're gonna fucking go. So yeah. Any future managers out there should definitely think about that, before they become managers.
I think every future manager should listen exactly to the words which you just said. We should
Yeah.
spread the link
Anyway.
to your wisdom to the whole industry.
We should chop it up and put it onto TikTok videos. Yeah.
No, but you're really right. You're really right. What you just said, it's the correct thing. It's how it should be, how it should be. And unfortunately, not
And dude,
everywhere it is, but it should be like that.
no.
It should be.
And dude, I've seen some fucking great examples of leadership, of good leadership, and it frustrates me that there isn't more of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said it a couple of times already as well, but I had Julian Thompson on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast last year sometime, and you know him I worked with him, and back when I was first starting out, and him and also Ian, to be fair, I don't really know him all that well because he was like at a distance, but those guys in general were such a great example of leadership that I'd seen, like some of the best ever. I know Julian a lot better, but like never any shouting, never throwing the fucking toys out the cart, and you've got, and that just this calm, clear feedback, and there's not this big separation between us and them, and that kind of style and ethos filters down throughout the team. You set a culture from the top down.
Yeah.
And the problem is that when there aren't positive examples like that, and the young guys see a manager at the top, or the big dick throwing his toys out the cart every 5 minutes and shouting and screaming and putting the fear of God into everybody, it's like we're all monkeys at the end of the day. We see like, oh, okay, if I want to be the big chief, then I need to do what he does and scream at everybody, and walk around pissed off and create this divide between me and my team.
Getting the wrong message.
And it's such a it's so stupid. It's such a short-sighted mentality, So
yeah. I believe it doesn't take really much to treat people well, but it definitely takes a lot of character to be that kind of leader that take the hits from above, but let the people you lead have their freedom and create. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy job.
No, it's not.
But
it's definitely not. And I'm learning it as a parent as well. It's so difficult sometimes when you've had a stressful day or you've got a lot of stuff going on, not to be short with your kids, for example. And it's a muscle that you've got to exercise, not to let that filter down into them. And in some respects, a great leader is a little bit like a parent as well.
Exactly.
Where they should, without being condescending, but they should think of it like that in a way.
Yeah.
Dude, listen, we've got to wrap up. It was great. I'm glad we were able to do it because I thought at one stage it was not going to be possible. Finally, I managed to track you down, and then we had these technical problems and we overcome it all. So I'm really, really pleased we were able to do it, Deyan.
Thanks a lot for inviting me, and again, my apologies that it took so long because you've you've been pushing me for this since more than half a year already. But,
Dude, people don't know what it takes to get guests on the show. I struggle like this all the time. I
Really?
won't mention names, but there's another guy that has like agreed to it. I don't know how many times, and I can never fucking pin him down. And I think we will soon, and I'll let you know when it happens. But yeah, it's a hard part of doing this. So I'm glad we were able to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad we did it, and I'm also really happy. I'm really glad from what you're doing, and thank you very much for doing it. Actually, like I've been following your podcasts for since certain time. Seriously, it's so cool to hear all these stories, and whether we have similarities in the stuff that we already know that are happening in the industry, and etc. But really cool to hear the stories from all these people, from all these really great designers. Like some of them I just know them by name, but it's so nice to see the human behind the face.
The people, yeah.
It's really great. It's really great.
It is. I mean, it's when I'm sitting here doing it, it's great for me as well. For me, it's like the education that I didn't get when I was in, I don't know, university. It's like getting to speak to all these people. I mean, dude, speaking to somebody like Stefan Janine as well. I just seen this guy's name. And his sketches, like we all know who he is and his sketches and everything, but like to be able to speak to somebody like that for me is just it's an honor, so it's I get a lot out of it as well. So thank you for